Welcome back, Season 2, 2024.
I'm Elamoni Cook.
I'm Kiara Figueroa, and this is
Ruby
Figueroa.
And we're excited. We're now in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, we are.
Which, if you didn't know before, we were both in California.
Mm-hmm.
And we have moved our lives to acquire a boring business.
Yes.
And on this journey, we want to really just be authentic with everything we go through and everything that we learn along the way, and bringing some cool experts on to share their wisdom.
Totally. Speaking of sharing our journey, very humbling experience. I transparently went through a breakup, was at my mom's house for the last 2 months. We shared a bed at one point when you came to visit. So very humbling. Happy to be here. Yes, growth in the new Deal Diary HQ.
Yeah. We've come a far way.
Indeed we have. I'm very proud of us. And I think, this being the first episode of season 2, we really wanted to start with how do you even go about finding a business? Just starting out, what do you do? This is even before you start broker relationships, before anything. How do you leverage the internet or what's out there to even begin your search?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because obviously some people can come across acquisitions off market, which we have spoken about. But I think every person in our community really starts with Biz Buy Sell.
Yes, BizQuest.
Yep, and NetLoop.
Yep, LoopNet.
LoopNet. Jesus, can't get that one right. And they're the three fundamentally recession-proof businesses. There are some marketing agencies, but most of the time we're looking at, laundromats, car washes, boring service-based businesses. Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking at. There's a lot of other, I don't want to say bullshit, but a lot of noise on these websites.
Yep.
And so Kiara and I just want to walk you through just what we learned the hard way.
Yeah. I think how you can really leverage these websites to work for you is one, setting up your notifications.
Yeah.
I think when we were talking about it earlier, being really strategic with that. So not putting too many filters where you're never getting any deal notifications, but not being too loose where you're getting notifications every 30 minutes. No one wants that. So I think that cash flow, of course, is a filter you're going to want to put on. Industry, but not being so too strict with industry, but making sure that we know we don't want any restaurants, we don't want any franchises, or dry cleaners. So making sure those are unchecked.
Yeah, and then I think from there, it's really about making sure you have a good strategy when it comes to assessing a listing. Yeah. So I think there's some brokers who will just throw up anything.
Yep.
And you can't let that deter you either.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you just never know when there's a gem. So you have to be optimistic, but at the same time, pessimistic. So
cautious.
Yeah. And so I think with that, it's really about just assessing, am I doing this to just gain experience and industry knowledge, or is this a deal that I'm really serious about?
Yeah.
Because those two things are very, two different strategies.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when we look at something, our ultimate approach is to make sure it fills out, it completes our deal box wholly. And Kiara and I have gotten good at even though we're living in the same house, we'll Slack each other and we'll be hey, I'm looking at these 7 listings. Give me a thumbs up on the ones that you're happy with. Because ultimately we want to make sure that we're both aligned with the business that we acquire. Obviously that's a part of buying a business as a team.
Yep.
And so I think with that, if you do have external partners, it's really getting clear on your deal box, which are just the parameters of which you want to buy a business. So cash flow being one, location being another, and industry. If you haven't watched this episode, we did do one in season 1.
Yep.
That's, I think it's episode 2, all around your deal requirements. But then from there, I think looking at businesses can be really fun.
I think it's exciting, especially to your point, how we Slack each other.
Mm-hmm.
I get excited when I'm okay, here's my list. What do you think? This is what I found. I think that's also what's really helpful too. I mean, it does take time. So, you and I have blocked off our calendars twice a week to spend time to make sure we've looked at a minimum of 25 different listings.
Yeah.
And then if we agree on it, then it goes in our deal pipeline, and then we begin our outreach. So
yeah. And then when it comes to outreach, Kiara and I were just reflecting that we don't do the best job at giving a good blurb and like really customizing it to that broker. I think that you should have a template that you copy and paste in. As we said, we don't love the like old school dinosaur websites that they are.
Right.
But I then take it the next step further now, and if I can, I'll try and find that person's LinkedIn profile, and then enrich that person's profile to get their verified email address, and then I'll have a nice templated outreach that goes over our deal requirements and then attach our SBA pre-qualification. And that's really a way to put your best foot forward with any listing.
Now, for people that don't know, like messaging, what are you talking about? That is on the listing, there's like a little box on the right hand side. So it's like, if you want further information, name, contact, email, and then you put this little blurb in.
Yeah.
So on top of enriching the email and all that amazing stuff that you do, I think it's also like the follow-up.
Yeah.
I'd say like 80% of the time you don't get the NDA just by filling that little box.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, 24 hours later, call them. If they don't answer, then email them. Then, the following day, call again.
And with that calling, just make sure